So now what? The Republican House just voted to repeal President Obama's health care law, but what about the democratically controlled Senate? Is repeal dead in the water over there? Senator David Vitter is here, and he tells us he has something planned for next week. Good evening, Senator, and what is your plan, sir?
Good to be with you, Greta. Well, I think the common plan on the conservative side is to make sure we have a clear vote on health care repeal in the Senate, and I think that's going to happen at some point on the floor of the Senate. There are a lot of different options, there are a lot of different ways to make that happen, but I think it's going to happen.
Well, is it going to be, is there any way it's going to pass? I mean, you may get your vote, may get an amendment or something, but, is there any, there's really no chance it's going to pass, right, or is there?
If you mean this first vote in the Senate, that's clearly uphill. But Greta, I'm invested in this for one reason and one reason only, to actually repeal Obamacare. And that is absolutely doable in time. Probably not next week or next month, but absolutely doable in time. I also think this activity on Capitol Hill has an impact on the courts, just like the number of states that sign up for the litigation against Obamacare has an impact on the courts. Maybe it shouldn't technically in the legal sense. I think it does.
Is there any discussion in the Senate about what's going on in the court system, the 26 or so states in Florida and the other? I mean, is there a tension on it? I mean, is there any sort of, is there any coordination with the states?
There's a great deal of discussion and work among conservatives like me who are for repeal, because that is a side-by-side track along with the legislative track that's very important. I think the law is unconstitutional. I think there are excellent arguments which could lead to a potentially 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court overturning not just something at the periphery of the law, but the core of the law. So there's a great deal of discussion about that. But also on the legislative track, we can repeal this in time. Again, it's not going to be next week or next month, but we can repeal it in time, and that's why conservatives are invested in that effort.
You know, as a pure method, pure situation is what goes on in the United States Senate or the House should have zero effect. What goes on in that court down in Florida or in Virginia or any place else, because in fact it doesn't matter whether 26 states or 1 state in the ruling. However, it does in some way sort of infiltrate, does it not?
I'm a recovering lawyer like you are, and I think we both absolutely know that has an impact. It has an impact in terms of the overall context and debate and how ultimately some courts are going to think about it. But again, I don't want to discount the legislative effort. I think we can build up to absolute repeal. Part of that is getting folks on the record. Part of that is making Democrats up for re-election this cycle vote on repeal directly.
I mean, I hear that from the Republicans in the Senate. I just don't see it. I mean, I don't see. I mean, I look at the numbers and I think that it's sort of just talk and chatter and wishful thinking among Republican senators. I don't see how you possibly get a vote.
What don't you see? I don't see how you get.
I don't see a repeal in the Senate. Well, I think the longer it goes on, the less likely it's going to get repealed, because the machinery is put in place and people are less likely to want to go back, and they want to fix things and not repeal things.
The other side of that coin is the longer it goes on, the more the American people get it and feel it and live it. And part of what they're going to be living is a lot of things they don't like clearly. I mean, at the core of this bill, at the absolute core, is an unconstitutional mandate making every American buy health insurance. At the core of this bill, major tax increases, major increases in health insurance premiums, putting bureaucrats between doctors and their patients, $500 billion cut to Medicare. Those aren't peripheral things that can be addressed with amendments. Those are at the core of the bill.
They may very well be, but if we're talking 4 years down the road or past another election cycle, I think, and I don't know, but I think Americans, they may not like it today, but they don't like uncertainty more, and I think they'd be more inclined to want to fix things down the road than turn things upside down again. But that's just a guess.
Well, we disagree on that, and I think those things at the core of the bill really upset Americans for very good reason.
Well, I think I do know a lot of Americans are upset. I get the emails every day, so I'm very well of that. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Greta.